Hi, we're going to look today, or this session, at the interval of a perfect fifth and an associated interval, a diminished fifth. There is another kind of fifth, an augmented fifth. We're not really going to get into that one just yet. Let's start with the perfect fifth. In the key of E, the fifth of E is B. That's the sound of the perfect fifth. Many of you will recognize these used quite a lot by rockers. They're power chords. When you combine them with the octave, you get the greatest rock and roll chord ever invented. Get yourself a stack of Marshalls and Les Paul, and you can really have a lot of fun. Anyway, the fifth, let's look at how many half steps and whole steps it is. From E up to B is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's 7 half steps or 3.5 steps. Now on a single string, it's awfully difficult to fret this interval on the same string. Some players can, but it's really tough. Obviously, as you move further up the fretboard, the frets get closer together, and in cutaway guitars, electrics, when you get way up here, you can do it. But down here, particularly in an acoustic guitar, it's very difficult unless you have just monster-sized hands. To try to, here's A, excuse me, A. Now to try to reach that E, that's a tough stretch for me, and probably for most folks. So getting back to the interval, that's the sound of it. On all the string sets it looks like this, except for the second and third. Because of the tuning, we have to expand the interval, the shape up to that. So it's like every finger takes a fret deal. But when we're on these strings, that's the shape of it. Now it's called perfect. I don't know a whole lot about why it's called perfect. The little bit I do know is because it has to do with the science of sound, acoustics. In the science of sound, when a string is stretched between the two fixed points and it's sounded, it's set into motion and it vibrates. It literally pushes air around and creates the sound, depending on the distance and the length of the stretch of the string. Now, the fundamental is the word that's used for the note itself. It's called a fundamental. Now, when you sound a note, a fundamental, it creates a series of overtones. When you have brand new strings or electric guitars with amps, you can hear these really pretty easily. Let's see if we can hear an overtone. The first overtone that is created is the same note itself, but up in the next octave. The first different note, other than the fundamental, that's heard is a fifth. Let's see if we can hear a fifth. I'm going to sound the sixth string. I could hear it there. Now I can cheat a little and put the sound of the fifth in your ear. That's a B. If you hear that B, and now, did you hear it right away there? Yeah, you can kind of hear it. Play around with that. The other one, by the way, that comes out next of the different tones in the overtone is the third. Can you hear that third? It's a major third. Ooh, there I just heard the fifth very loudly. at the end there, you can really hear that third, that major third. Okay, so that's the perfect fifth, how we got it. That's why it's called a perfect fifth. It's generally considered a very, very consonant interval. You know, when the king comes out, usually the trumpets are going, that kind of thing. Used all the time to impart power, strength, those kind of things. The other fifth that I said we talk about is a diminished fifth. Just as the name applies, to diminish something means to lessen it. So if we take that perfect fifth interval and we shrink it down a half step, now we get the sound of a diminished fifth, or oftentimes called the tritone. Now the tritone is generally considered to be the most dissonant interval of all of the intervals, and it does have kind of a grating sound. On all the string sets except 2 and 3, it's like this. Okay, when we come to this string set, of course, the second and third, we've got to expand that out. It's like that. Now we've come to hear it and associate it into our hearing as normal now, but in the year 900 AD, if you played the tritone, you could find yourself in jail, or worse, even threatened, burned at the stake. The church banned the interval, and it was known as the devil's interval. It certainly wasn't that way now when Jimi Hendrix played Purple Haze. He sort of immortalized the tritone for rock and roll. But just as the name Purple Haze implied, you know, there was a lot of being upside down. You know, the days of acid and everything else, people were dazed and confused, and that tritone was the interval he thought really brought that emotion out. Okay, the diminished fifth, or the tritone. Now, with our series of intervals that we have up to now, we have major and minor seconds, we have major and minor thirds, and we have perfect and diminished fifths. Now, at this point, we're going to be able to launch into chord construction, because we're going to be able to create triads. Like the name implies, a triad is 3 notes. The root or fundamental note, the third, either major or minor, and the fifth, either perfect or diminished. So it's difficult to understate the importance of triads. They really are the basic building block of all chord construction, and even have applications that are far beyond just basic triads themselves. They are very, very powerful, and we're going to study them quite a bit. But we've had to sort of get this part, at least up to now, done. From here on, we're going to continue with the intervals, but this will set the stage now for beginning to examine the basics of chord construction.